Whatever you're surrounded by, culture is all of it.
What about that guy? What about that guy in the corner?
I'm not sure I'd be allowed to make the first ad I made anymore.
I think this is the hardest part.
She picks up the phone and you hear... Alex.
Evan.
It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too.
Yeah. How do we do? Do you want to go first?
I'll go first. Okay, so question number one.
We're having a limber up here, aren't we?
I think so. This is called an icebreaker. What was your favourite ad growing up, Evan Roberts?
Ooh, I don't know. There was a few that just really stuck in my head. And if I'm thinking back to Blackcurrant Tango, and you mentioned it, that still holds up as a very, very funny spot. It could also, today would still be relevant because it would just be a social comment, right?
Yeah.
It would actually just be, you've plucked that off your feed and you've pointed a massive commercial at one person.
But it does seem a very TikTok-friendly kind of ad, because it's just having a lot of fun. It's just playful. You can see the joy in the creation of that ad.
What about you? What was happening in there?
There was a Kellogg's ad for, I think it's called Kellogg's Fruit and Nut, and it had a jingle that was just a list of ingredients, essentially.
Yeah.
So apples, hazelnuts, sultanas, raisins, coconuts, bananas.
Enjoying myself.
What was the first ad you made, and how would you bring it to life on TikTok today?
So I'm not sure I'd be allowed to make the first ad I made anymore, but my first ad was for Just Jeans, and it was for stripy pants at Just Jeans. So they open in a really spooky kind of house, and the woman is there in stripy pants, and down the far end of the hall, the phone rings. And so there's this tension as she catwalks. She picks up the phone and you hear on the other end, you literally cut to the other end of the phone and it's a zebra going, oh, and it said stripy pants.
I mean, I like it.
How do you bring that to life on TikTok?
Is there a zebra talk? There seems to be a talk for most things now.
Yeah,
Zebra talk.
Yeah, that's true.
Lots of people creating zebra content.
The zebra was actually a donkey that was spray painted.
Oh, you definitely wouldn't be able to do that these days.
Yeah. Okay, what was your first ad and how would it come to life on TikTok?
It was a lot worse than your ad. Mine was very superficial. It was a 15-second TV ad for Argos catalogue in the UK. So we had an idea that there was a family holidaying at Argos instead of going on holiday because it was such a good sale.
So how does that translate into the modern world of TikTok?
Well, maybe like a hashtag challenge. So as in, can you spend your entire summer embedded in an Argos store and make them live there for the entire summer?
That actually that would play. I think that'd be good.
It's better than the original.
Yeah. How much of your creative skill do you believe is nature versus nurture? How much of it's innate?
I mean, I'm going to say 99% nurture. And I think I'm probably I'm probably a bit of an exception because I didn't do an arts degree. I did an advertising degree. So when you're talking about creativity, my creativity is more probably strategic and conceptual.
I thought you were going to say the exact opposite. Because what do you think the craft side of it is what makes you creative? Or is it just... Because I'm 99%, I just think it's the way people are looking at things as opposed to output-wise. I'm like, are you a curious mind? Are you, a smart ass?
Well, smart ass and creative, they kind of go hand in hand, don't they? You kind of have to be a little bit of a smart ass and think that you're funnier or wittier or something.
I think there's always you've got to have that sense of nature, that's in your nature to kind of explore or question. And then I 100% agree that after that point, it is you've got to nurture it and you've got to study it.
What role does culture play in inspiring your creative work?
The observation of humanity is big. So I think culture is always it's what's feeding you. I think if you're not out there looking at stuff whatever you're surrounded by is, I think your creativity is the sum of the parts, So I think culture is sort of what we eat it's the creative meal.
It's like a lineage, right? It kind of is in everyone and gets passed through everyone. Without it, we wouldn't have any ideas at all as creatives.
We're kind of swimming in it, right?
Yeah.
you're feeding off it, it's feeding you.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that like creating culture has become more of that's the definition of what we seem to do these days.
All right, I'm going for another one.
Do it.
Whose role is it to break into culture, media or creative agency?
Both, 100%. It's both.
True.
I guess media. There's a templated nature to media. Like there's platforms that you need to be on, and there's a way of like interacting with your consumers in like relevant times.
Yeah,
and all of that is like really kind of important in terms of breaking into culture. But you know, it's limited. Whereas a creative agency, like culture for a creative, could be so deep, so rich, that I think you've just like absolutely as a creative, you've got to be across it, and you know, and agencies need to, I guess, land really resonant and emotive and current messaging. So you have to do it as a creative agency.
Yours for me?
Yeah.
Deal 'em. Card me.
How do you stay on top of what's trending in culture? I feel like I say I read these questions quite sarcastically. How do you, Evan Roberts, how do you stay on top of what's trending in culture and inspire your teams to do so?
This will sound super lame, but I kind of get them to inspire me, really. Like, we're literally, you know, full of Gen Z creatives, and you get a really great mix of people in the room and ask some questions, and they talk. And I think a lot of our job, you know, originally I would have thought a creative director, the role would have been kind of dictatorial, but these days I think you've got to be a really good listener to sit and hear. And so I just like trying to get it out of people of what have you been doing? What have you been listening to?
Yeah.
So I think making sure you're surrounded by people that are, and encouraging people to go out and look at art and listen to music and tool around with, you know, new creative tools is how you keep up with that.
Part of the biggest joy in my job is how has been creating an environment where people feel safe to share their like cultural reference points.
Yeah, totally.
Because we have like people of my vintage, like in their late 40s, we have like people.
You're in your late 40s. You're doing very well, if I may say so.
You look good too.
That's good feedback. Thank you. What's your favourite TikTok campaign? It could be yours or someone else's.
There's so many. The Modi Body one that I think is really good. It just felt like it understood the audience like perfectly well. It didn't pull punches, and it was brilliantly written and realized. So I thought that was really good. Globally, I really like Mexican Pizza, the musical. For Taco Bell, because that drew on so many different sort of like cultural touch points. Like it had Dolly Parton in it, and then it had like these cool influencers in it. It was on TikTok, obviously, but it was also in the news. You know, people were sharing it.
The 10-minute TikTok. Have you ever seen that? No. So basically, it completely subverted the whole category, and you had to hang on. It was for Hilton, and their whole platform is for the stay, and it was a 10-minute TikTok, but all these amazing American influencers keeping you hooked into this thing. And I just, the subversion of the whole thing to sort of changing the behavior of people, encouraging them to watch on, as well as just being beautifully crafted with like incredible talent.
So like the reason I first like got excited about using TikTok was because it was described to me as the last sunny place on the internet. So I just think that like TikTok is one of the most like compelling platforms to tell interesting stories. It's got so many interesting creators and so much traction with the most interesting people who are young people. So I just think it's a great place to tell stories of different shapes and sizes.
I think we're always I think advertising generally is just always interrupting. It always has been, but I think you really need to understand culturally what's happening, who's watching, and then a conversation will start. Like you're gonna need a little bit of something to win people over at a party, you know.
TikTok's almost like the toughest like talent contest in the world, really. Because people can like swipe you in an instant. They can just like gone, not interested, don't care, blah blah blah. blah. You know, so you got to be interesting to illustrate the point of it not being just that kind of fun, happy place. It's much more diverse and interesting than that. The Reluctant Shanty, which was for UNHCR, you know, and it was a particular time where there was lots of refugees stuck on boats in the Mediterranean. So, you know, I guess the time was right to do something about it. The audiences were on TikTok that were gonna make a change. We told that story using an influencer who's like got a huge following on TikTok, Nathan Evans. He's a Shanty guy, and he just broadcasted it out to his network, and you know, got picked up like everywhere, and raised attention for the issue, which at the end of the day, you know, you could have done that through a broadcast medium, but doing it through an interactive medium made it so much more powerful.
Yeah. What is something happening in culture right now that gets you excited as a creative?
What excites me in culture at the moment? Well, I guess the breaking down of barriers between, like, I guess with social media, you saw all like the rise of all of these kind of niche, like subsets of culture. You know, whether that's like sort of music or whether that's fashion. But there were all these. Everyone was going to their little spots, their little corners. Now I feel like with something like TikTok, they're all getting mashed in together again.
Yeah.
So there's this sort of breaking down of barriers where, like,
it's like, not as algorithmed somehow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I just feel like there's a bit of a creative renaissance about to happen. You've got AI and questions around that. We're seeing really big shifts in what's considered valuable and what kind of skill sets are needed, and the way people are thinking, and particularly the way like the channels we use. Something is going to kick, and I find that really exciting.
That's so true. The idea of a creative renaissance, whether that's agencies or whether that's client side or whether that's you know, tech companies or you know, that startup mentality is being driven by creatively driven people, and that's really exciting. They're saying the hard part is over, but I think this is the hardest part personally. Now let's have some fun. Please draw your favorite trend from the past year on the whiteboard. You'll then take turns guessing what the other person has drawn.
Oh my God.
See, my little corner of TikTok isn't very trendy. 90s comedians and English football.
Yeah.
Was that trending last year?
Okay. What is... Now I just need a visual.
Okay, so I've drawn a TikTok trend. Have a guess.
Is that's a nipple?
Yeah, it's not attached to either of the people. It just helps with the storytelling.
Nipple pings.
Nipple pings. Yeah. That should have been the name of my agency. Yeah. Nipple pings.
I might keep that one. I don't know what's happening more.
I could probably do it into this microphone, and you'd get aroused. It's ASMR.
Oh, of course. Okay. I'm going to get you ready for yours now. This is a portrait of you, by the way.
Romans. The Romans were big on TikTok.
Yeah, Roman Empire.
Yeah,
it was too easy, wasn't it?
Well, it's just a really good drawing. I feel bad about my drawing.
I put some chest hair on there as well.
Now that looks like I've shaved.
Yeah.